Hey guys, this is Undercover Dudes all the way from down under, and today we're checking out the top 20 low-spec free-to-play first-person shooter games. Games that are perfect if you have a bad or old computer, especially if you have low RAM or Intel HD graphics. Before we start though, only 15% of you guys are subscribed to the channel, so hit that subscribe button right now if you want more videos on free-to-play games. But with that said, let's get straight into it. Starting out at the number 20 spot, we have WARMODE, which is pretty much bootleg Counter-Strike for really bad PCs. It rips off CS maps and has glitchy gameplay, but it's actually pretty fun to play despite its faults. Next up, we have Modern Combat 5, the Call of Duty-like mobile game that was then ported to the PC. Despite it originally being a mobile game, it works decently well, with a solid play base and an okay battle round mode. Definitely not the best FPS game out there, but one of the easiest to run on a bad computer given its mobile origins. Counter-Strike NEXON Studio, formerly known as NEXON Zombies, is basically Counter-Strike 1.6 but free to play, but with lots of modes and zombies. It's a bit of a mess and has a small but consistent player base, and like the games before this, has many flaws, but works especially well on bad computers. Think of Minecraft crossed with a traditional first-person shooter and you've got BLOCKPOST, a fairly simple game. While it does have a great concept, decent graphics, a small 60MB download and fun gameplay, it's slightly ruined by pay-to-win mechanics which creates a large gap. If you can overcome this though, BLOCKPOST is a decent title to put a bit of time into. Let's not beat around the bush here. ZULA is Counter-Strike Global Offensive but aimed at Turkish players. It rips off the maps, weapons and modes heavily, while the gameplay is more arcade-ish and is faster paced. It's a playable game for sure and has a significant player base, but only in Turkey and the surrounding parts of Europe. CROSSFIRE is for sure the original free-to-play first-person shooter, heavily based off the classic Counter-Strike 1.6. Over the years, tons of content has been added and the developers have stayed true to the original formula, but hackers have pushed a considerable portion of the player base away. In China though, CROSSFIRE is still booming, being one of the most played games in that region and therefore one of the most played games in the world, so very much worth a look if you can get access to that version. It wouldn't be a free-to-play FPS video without me mentioning Combat Arms Reloaded, one of my favourite FPS games of all time. Solid mechanics, high levels of customization, great maps and modes. CA is a game with a very solid structure under it. While it's definitely less popular in 2020 due to a variety of issues, the game is still fun and can easily be played on a variety of PC types given that it was originally released in 2008. Line of Sight is a game with a different take on the shooter genre, with abilities being a big talking point alongside the gunplay. Originally to be a sequel to the aforementioned Combat Arms, Line of Sight was then independently published and pushed as an easy to run arcade shooter with a heap of customization. The Redux update in late 2019 removed a lot of the unnecessary grind, bringing the game back to its original roots, and has gained a bit of the original player base back. Like the original Combat Arms, I've had a lot of fun with this game in the past, so hey, check it out if it piqued your interest. From now on, these games are definitely worth downloading and playing. The previous 7 are fun but flawed, however they are very easy to run, hence why I wanted to include them on this list. But starting off the next section of games is HELLBOUND Survival Mode, a regular in my top 10 list and for good reason. It embodies the classic shoot 'em up action of Doom, Quake and Duke Nukem in a modern package. The concept is simple, take on waves of enemies on a small island and try to last as many rounds as possible. Round by round you'll gain new weapons, eventually getting an arsenal including a shotgun, rocket launcher, minigun and more. It's simple but addicting, as every time you die you want to go back and try to beat your score, and it also functions as a great aim trainer too. Next up we have IRONSIGHT, a Call of Duty-like game that we've talked about quite a few times on this channel. I personally love this game. The shooting and movement are on point, the progression system is satisfying but not too grindy, and there is now a decent selection of maps and modes that go along with it. Another big appeal is that it has that Call of Duty-like gameplay, but with significantly lower minimum requirements than Call of Duty itself, only needing an Intel Core 2 Duo processor and the GeForce 9600 GT. This is still quite a bit higher than some of the other games listed here, hence its position, but I think IRONSIGHT is still worthy of a spot. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds was one of the most popular games on Steam a few years ago, and it's still popular to this day. However, the game is notoriously difficult to run, even on good PCs. Introduce PUBG LITE, which is basically PUBG Mobile ported to the PC in a free-to-play format, a true winning combo. Graphically, it's definitely a step down, but the gameplay is still there, which is the most important aspect. An interesting and potentially deal-breaking point though is what regions are supported, as quite a lot of Europe and Asia are supported, but not Oceania and the United States. Please note that while this is the LITE version, the minimum specs is a Core i3, 4GB of RAM and an Intel HD 4000, which is significantly higher than many other games on this list, so even though it's still quite low specs, please be wary. Black Squad is the perfect example of a well-rounded free-to-play military FPS. It's obviously crafted out of the same cloth as Counter-Strike, but it has its own identity, with gameplay being significantly faster and in your face. This makes Black Squad perfect if you're a team deathmatch focused running gunner like I am, or a search and destroy fan who want to take it a bit slower, making this game appealing to a variety of FPS players. Now, being a Korean-made game as well, the developers made sure that this game can be run on a variety of systems, and they've done just that. The minimum specifications being a Core 2 Duo and a GeForce 8600. In comparison to some of the other games on this list, Black Squad has been out for quite a long time, has a ton of content and a very active player base, which makes this an easy recommendation to download and check out. I know people meme Paladins as an Overwatch copy, but it's actually quite a fun time and for me personally much more enjoyable than Overwatch. What I mean by that is Paladins has a huge array of champions, a limitless amount of customization with the card system, and a much faster time to kill across the board, making this feel more shootery than Overwatch, and so I feel a bit more at home. Point aside, Paladins is a fairly easy to run game with its minimum specs being a Core 2 Duo processor and a GeForce 8800 GT. And due to its fairly simple graphics, it means that reducing your resolution or putting your settings on low won't have that much of an impact on the gameplay experience. Unturned is a true free-to-play staple, with its Minecraft crossed with DayZ gameplay. However, it's much more than that, with tons of multiplayer servers hosting different mods, completely transforming the game. While from first impressions it may seem a bit underwhelming, Unturned is a ton of fun to play and has a huge player base as well, not only from its years of developer support, but also because it's so easy to run. Under minimum specs, it just says a 2GHz processor, 4GB of RAM and DirectX 9 graphics, so yeah, anything can play this. Great game, great community, check it out. Now if we're talking unique games, FISTFUL FRAGS is 100% up there. A Wild West themed shooter focused more on skill and opportune timing. Most guns are powerful but terribly inaccurate, resulting in some hilarious shootouts and clutch moments. Add in a bunch of modes and maps and community driven content, and FISTFUL FRAGS is a treat to play, as the game isn't as serious as some others on this list. Being released in 2014, you might be concerned about longevity, but it still holds up in 2020 and is super easy to run, with minimum specs being a Pentium 4 processor and 2GB of RAM. Come on, you know I had to put Team Fortress 2 on here, the pillar of free-to-play shooters that has consistently stood the test of time. For those who have never heard of this game before, please go and download it right now. Even in 2020, it's still one of the most important and fun games out there, and the player base is still very strong. Spec-wise, TF2 is incredibly easy to run, and this is from personal experience, as I used to run this game on a terrible laptop and it held up really well. Why, you may ask? Well, the minimum specs just say a 1.7GHz processor or better and 512MB of RAM, so basically anything can go and run this. Add everything together and TF2 is a super easy recommendation, especially if you've never played FPS games before, because this is a great transition into the genre, but even still, if you're a shooter veteran, go and check it out. TF2 simply has something for everyone. Free to play, first person shooter and low spec. Of course, we have to talk about Counter-Strike Global Offensive. The most popular FPS right now, and for a reason. CSGO is a masterpiece and has stood the test of time. Spec-wise, this game can run on an absolute toaster, with an Intel Core 2 Duo processor, 2GB of RAM, and a 256MB video card being needed to meet the minimum requirements. Now, forgetting about the amazing gameplay, an underrated factor in choosing a game to play is its longevity, as some games die much faster than others. CSGO is an example of a game that has and will be around for years to come. Since its release in 2012, the game has gained a stronger and stronger player base each year, with recent months going and breaking player count records. A very important note though is that there is a free-to-play and a paid version of CSGO. Free players play with each other and paid players play with each other. With Counter-Strike being incredibly popular, that means that hackers are prevalent in the free-to-play version, especially in the lower levels. If you expect to put any significant amount of time into this game, I highly suggest copying the $10 and getting it. It will be worth it for sure. Assault Cube may be a game that many of you don't know about, but it's a blast from my past and I 100% wanted to include it on this list. Assault Cube is all about fast-paced and hardcore combat, without focusing on the bells and whistles that other games have. The beauty is with the simplicity when it comes to this game. A few classes go and offer some diversity, but really it comes down to how good the gameplay is, because it is so good, especially in terms of the movement and shooting mechanics. It's got that addicting feeling that keeps you coming back for more and more and scratches that hardcore itch. Assault Cube also prides itself on being easy to download and get into. A 50MB download is perfect, and the minimum specifications of a Pentium 3 processor and 256MB of RAM make this one of the easiest to run on this list, especially because it doesn't even specify a video card as being necessary. The source code is open for anyone to develop, the netcode is really solid, and then add in a ton of maps, many of them being community made. Assault Cube is really up there when it comes to free-to-play games, especially low-spec ones. If you're a fan of this channel, you would have automatically guessed that the next game to be on this list would be Krunker.io. It's the definition of accessibility, a browser FPS with incredibly simple graphics, meaning that literally anyone that has a computer, even a Chromebook, can go and play it. Besides the accessibility aspect, Krunker has a large variety of classes, maps, and modes. On top of addicting shooting and movement mechanics, man, you can just slide around the map like Quake level speed. It is crazy, and it really is a total package, and I would argue the gameplay of Krunker.io is better than a lot of AAA games that you can go and download right now. In my opinion, this game really encapsulates what this list is all about. Great games that are easy to run, and even if I am a bit biased given this is my main game I go and play on this channel, I knew I had to go and include it. Coming in at the number 1 spot, we have the one and only Valorant, Riot Games' new first-person shooter. This game has an insane amount of hype around it, and for good reason. It takes a tactical, round-based gameplay and gunplay from Counter-Strike, adds characters with their own abilities, and spruces the whole package up to 11 in typical Riot style. What I'm most excited about this though is the incredibly low system specs which are needed to play this game. Riot specifically made Valorant easy to run so as many people as possible can go and play it. Now, comparison to some other games that list minimum specifications and that may or may not be playable, in this case, Riot has said straight out, minimum specs is 30 frames per second, and to run this game at 30 FPS you need an Intel i3M processor and an Intel HD 300. Now, the i3 might be a little bit concerning, but that is a laptop processor with inbuilt graphics, so they're saying with a relatively old laptop you can play this game at 30 FPS. Similar stories can be seen with the recommended and high-end graphics, with 60 FPS being very obtainable for a very large percentage of gamers out there. Because of this and the fantastic gameplay that Valorant has, Valorant gets the number 1 spot. It is the king of the low-spec free-to-play FPS games. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more free-to-play content. But other than that, Undercover Dudes, all the way from down under, out.